Hello everyone, this is not the Cobra Commander. This is the first of many videos where I will be trying to answer frequently asked questions and giving a better picture as to how policies and procedures work behind the counter. That way, many people can better understand why certain things tend to come up in customer service, and also to try to answer questions about policies and the best practices. Also, to correct misunderstandings and to answer questions about why certain procedures and policies are carried out in customer service and why they aren't more transparent about these and what they truly mean. Bearing in mind, this is just my personal opinion and based on my own experience and those around me that I have spoken to. One of the most frequent issues I have come across is when checking into hotels. Should you use a credit card or a debit card? What are the differences? And why are these differences? They're both plastic forms of payment after all. Many of them are from the same card service provider. Well, actually, the differences are quite profound. Debit cards are actually linked to your checking account, as in the money you have in the account is what is used when you use the card. Now, there are more complications than this. For example, you can go overdrawn. Some companies have limits that you can set on your daily spend, and sometimes there are even certain procedures when it comes to pre-authorizing the card, which we'll get into later. Credit cards, on the other hand, are more like a loan. You don't own the cash, you are borrowing it from the bank, or in this case, the card issuer. And that is what is used to make the purchase. Of course, credit cards, as you know, have lines of credit. This line of credit is based on many factors, like your credit rating and your income, but generally, the higher it is, the easier it is to use it for said purchases. The big difference comes in pre-authorizations. When using a debit card, the hotel holds so much, it's what's referred to as incidentals. Incidentals are the hotel trying to secure the room against damage or anything you might charge to the room. The issue with debit cards is they actually pull the funds normally. That means you are short of that money in the meantime. Now, this wouldn't be such a problem. Assuming you don't damage the room or put anything on the room, you should get the money back in a timely manner, right? Wrong. The hotels tend to release the hold when you check out. However, many banks and card issuers hold the money while they try to then verify that you had the money in the first place. So, how long do they hold the money for? Well, that depends. In my experience, debit cards tend to hold money for days or weeks. Credit cards tend to hold the money for hours or days. Let's circle back to incidentals for a moment. Just how much are incidentals? That varies depending on the hotel, but normally, the higher the quality of the hotel or the nicer the area it's in, the more the incidental hold. I have seen hotels that charge as little as $20 a night to those that charge $100 a night. So always check with your hotel first to make sure you have sufficient funds in either your credit or debit card so that you can put everything on one card at once. Because that brings us to another issue that comes up. Many people didn't anticipate the incidentals and get surprised when the amount is higher than the amount that they looked at online. So many people will then try to split the payments between two different cards. This can be done at most hotels. I wouldn't recommend it because that is inviting problems to occur and confusion. Many times it is very simple to add a card on a hotel operating system. However, if it is not set up properly, what is known as the routing, then the incorrect card will get charged for different things. For example, some people want the room and tax to come out of one card and the incidentals, parking, or anything they put on the room to come out of the second card. However, the routing, if it's not set up correctly, means both cards might get charged both amounts. And especially if these are both debit cards, that'll mean both will go through the following problems that we're about to discuss. In addition to the funds being held, the other common issues are what is known as phantom charges or double charges. What happens is, when the card is authorized, whether it's a debit or credit card, the funds are held, and then they're supposed to be released, and then the card is charged the actual amount depending on how much you actually spend on the room, the tax, and any room charges or anything that perhaps gets damaged in the room. However, especially with debit cards, and as stated before, many online banks or smaller banks, they will hold on to the initial hold for much longer, but of course you will still get charged the actual amount. And so sometimes you are already short this money, and then they also take this money. That is what is known as double charging. On credit cards, normally this first charge will appear as a pending charge, which means it should fall off before the actual charge goes through. Again, different credit card companies have different policies, but in my experience, even smaller banks with their credit cards tend to release the funds in a timely manner, and normally either before or on the same day that the actual charge is then applied to the account. So, in addition to the funds being held and the other disadvantages of debit cards potentially getting charged double, what are the other advantages for using a credit card for checking into a hotel? The first set of advantages is consumer protection. Most credit cards offer what's called zero fraud liability, as if the transaction is fraudulent, your credit card number is stolen, or someone robs you, you are not liable for the transaction. That's why when you try to use a credit card normally to buy things, you normally have to insert, tap it, or in the olden days you had to swipe it and then sign. This was to prove you were actually the one initiating the transaction. However, if this isn't done, then normally it is much easier to get the charge withdrawn from your account. The other advantage of using credit cards is many of them have bonuses, cashback, points, rewards, and even some perks. Especially co-branded hotel credit cards, they will give you elite status, access to lounges, and sometimes even will mean you don't have to pay certain fees, like for upgraded Wi-Fi. However, these alone do not mean that you should always use credit cards, as not all credit cards have these advantages at all hotels. You have to check to make sure that this hotel participates in this program. And the final thing with credit cards is, as stated before, there's a credit limit. Especially on longer stays or expensive hotels, if enough of the credit limit is taken up, that can negatively affect your credit rating. It's what's referred to as credit card utilization. We'll get into that in a different video. So in conclusion, should one utilize a credit card or a debit card when checking into a hotel? The truth is, both payments work and are viable. Whichever payment method you do utilize, I would strongly recommend only utilizing one form of payment to avoid the confusions stated earlier. Credit cards do have those advantages, like not holding the funds for as long, extra perks, extra rewards, and less liability. However, they do have the disadvantage of the credit limits and utilization. Debit cards are much easier for people to get hold of, but they do tend to withhold the funds for longer. They don't have as many perks or protections. However, they don't have to worry about credit limits. This will bring many to suggest, why not just utilize cash when checking into a hotel? And the simple fact is, most hotels do not accept cash anymore. And those that do tend to ask for a far greater hold than they would do on a debit card, which means even more of your money is out of your hands. And assuming your checking account pays interest, or your savings account does, you would lose that interest, thereby costing you even more money. So thank you for watching this video. We will do another video shortly as to the best check-in procedures at hotels and many of the perks and rewards people don't know about. Thank you.